What do Blockbuster, water parks, and multifamily investing have in common? You probably guessed it, Ross McArthur. In this very first video of the Get Real, Get Weiser podcast, Ross takes us from his teenage days crushing video rental rewards to flipping 76 houses and running 900 rental units, and why flipping is a lot more painful than TV makes it look. This show is all about cutting through the fluff, real people, real stories, real lessons. So buckle up. Fires, flips, and family investors, all in episode 1. Hey everyone, welcome to our first ever episode of Get Real, Get Weiser. I'm your host, Svi, LLC Weiser. This is a BYOB podcast. Ross is a little stunned. He doesn't know where the booze is. He forgot to bring it. But what it actually means is bring your own bio. I won't be reading any paragraph that Ross sent me about what he did without even thinking about what he did. I'm going to leave it to him to excite you guys about who he is. I do happen to know Ross, so I know it's good stuff. Yeah, so actually for episode 1, I handpicked Ross. One more thing. On this is the Get Real, Get Wiser podcast, and if you are not real, we are going to buzz you, okay? Ross, I know you're not ready for this. You probably haven't been buzzed into any podcasts, but this may be the first one, so watch yourself. For episode 1, I actually handpicked Ross out of thousands of people who were dying to be on the podcast. Well, oh, gee, I didn't know this thing works on me, that buzzer. Anyway, well, truth is, I begged Ross to do the podcast with me. I hope you guys enjoy it. Ross, it's all yours. Here's the mic. Do it.
Thank you. I was honored to do it. We get to choose how we spend our time, and you've been kind over the years, helping us through situations. I was glad to repay the favor. Congratulations on the new podcast and platform. I think you'll do extremely well. My name is Ross McArthur. I grew up in Michigan. I kept trying to keep this bio a little bit brief, but Midwest kid, grew up in Michigan. And then after graduating from school, I kind of went wherever the money was. Moved all over the country, worked for some Fortune 500 companies, worked for some startups. And then for about 10 years, worked for a large private multi-billion-dollar software as a service company in the automotive sector. While all this was going on, though, I've been always really intrigued by entrepreneurship. My mom and dad were not entrepreneurs, but it intrigued me. The housing market intrigued me, rental properties intrigued me, entrepreneurship as a whole. And one of my stints through that I mentioned was entrepreneurship type of company, a startup company. And I got to see it firsthand as an employee or a small partner. That's where my wheels started going. I continued to learn on the sidelines. And then when I went to work for that software as a service company, I really decided it was time. I wanted to control our retirement more. I wanted to have a little less in the market. So in 2020, like a lot of people actually, I jumped into real estate, bought a fourplex in a small town in Indiana. Did that again, bought a couple duplexes that summer, and we were off and running. That quickly grew to about 125 units in a couple years. We were able to use bank debt, rinse and repeat it over and over again, which worked really, really well. Then I became an accidental flipper, which we'll talk about. As I was buying properties, I'd come across a single family, and a lot of times I'd just say no. And then one day I was like, well, what the heck? Well, I tried to flip it. What's the worst that can happen? So you figure that out. Actually, it went fine, but you definitely learned some lessons. And I think we just finished our 76th flip in almost 4 years. In 2022, we started Follow the Deal, which is a group investing company. And then 2023, we started our property management company called Thrive Property Group that really just focused on our portfolio. We've done about 900 rental units in our portfolio. We have a property management company. We own a couple water parks. That's definitely a story for another day. That's a podcast on its own. But a big part of what you want to talk about is journeys. And you can kind of tell it's a winding journey. Where you start, where you end, and where you're going over the next 10 years is something you could never picture. It's a fun ride, and it's fun to be a part of a community where you get to meet people like yourself.
Wow, there's one thing I didn't share with you guys about Ross. It's a secret he may not know. It earns him our top spot on our first podcast. Ross doesn't understand why we're in business because we did an audit on his LLCs and they were all in good standing. So he can't figure out what you need us for.
That's Lori, our CFO, and Stan Remling, our accountant, all working together. Thank you for giving me credit. You put the people in the right seats and you'll be all right. Thank you.
They say real estate is a team effort. It's your team. You're part of the team. You all get the credit. Okay, so Ross shared with us all the stuff that he wants you to know about him. We're going to try to pull out of him some of the stuff he may not want you to know about him. Let's go back to those early days in Michigan. What kind of kid were you? Were you a hustler? Were you into baseball cards and mowing lawns, or were you that dreamer about, the future, what's going to be when you get older?
Kind of a blend of everything. I was adopted at birth, and my brother, separate families, but adopted at birth. So I kind of came into a family that was incredibly loving. My dad and mom are great stewards of the community. Actually, they make us look really bad. But my mom's mother, Teresa, she actually was mostly a stay at home mom in the younger years by choice. My dad worked as a counselor at juvenile hall. So that kind of gives you a little background of how I was molded a little bit. Put good in the world, get good back. That's kind of our human mentality that I was grown up with. The other side of it is my mom had a cute side of business to her, but she never really got to put it to work in, I would call, a traditional business aspect. She worked for a university and was part of their donor raising money for the university. So she's got to be a lot of parts of things that included business or marketing and advertising and just the whole thing. And so I got to see that from a different lens. She taught us blocking and tackling financially. I grew up with a good understanding of good debt, credit card debt, never collecting interest, having low expenses, living within your means foundation. Incredibly impactful on me as a 40 something year old now. What I was as a kid, it was interesting. I was always engaging, a bit of a socialite, introvert. Other times I could be life of the party, very talkative, engaging. That's what got me into sales. And so I think sales lends itself to entrepreneurship really well. And here's a story. I've actually never told this story, but for those who really want to be dated, there was things called Blockbuster Video. Some of us know of that, and they
Spent
had.
my teenage years in Blockbuster choosing films until I ran
Yeah,
out of.
I worked there as a part-time job in high school and college for a while. One of the things I was doing, they had these rewards programs, and they were like $20 or whatever. And you literally got nothing for trying to sell them. You got a gift card or something minimal. And every month, I wanted to crush everybody. I was like top in the state, top 5 in the state of Michigan, and selling these. So I think take that mentality of whatever I did, I wanted to be the best at, even if it didn't really equate a lot of dollars and cents. So then I took that into the sales world. I got to see that when you're in a sales world, especially like an outside sales rep, you run a 5-state territory like I did. That's a small business. That's essentially a business. And so then I got to run my own business and I wanted to be the best at it. I got to see a startup company and wanted to be the best at it. And so what I started to figure out over these years is it doesn't matter whether I make $10,000 or $1 million. I want to be the best at what I do. And so eventually that led to wanting to be an entrepreneur. I figured out I'm being the best at something for somebody else. I want to be the best at something for myself and my family. All of what I told you shaped me into who I am today. So I hope that answered your question. But yeah, sports, all of that was all part of my childhood. But I think where the entrepreneurship mentality came in is no matter what I did, I wanted to be the best at.
Which achievement was your proudest
Business wise or personal?
as a kid
Oh,
in
as a kid,
Blockbuster days?
what would be the biggest
Sounds like you
achievement?
were crushing it. It's hard to choose.
Well, not so much that. I will go very different because I was in sales. So there's a lot of those achievement type of things. I think my mom told me this when she was younger, and I was probably 15, 16 years old at the time. So I'm kind of in that like young dating phase of, high school, maybe sophomore, junior high school. And my mom got a compliment from another mother who said, I would be really proud if your son dated my daughter. And she says to this day, that's still one of her favorite moments as a parent. And so I now carry that. Me and my wife talk about that all the time. Like one of the greatest achievements is you can go to school with your teachers, or you go and meet somebody and they say, wow, what a great person. And so I think like you can be great at a lot of things, but being a great human, there's only so many out there. I think that's an incredible compliment.
Did you date her?
I never did. They were a good friend of our family, never dated her.
So now I'm going to ask you one more question before we move on to business. Sounds like you were a pretty straight-laced kid. You had your head and heart in the right place. What was the one rebellious thing you did that
Oh my God.
was so
So
out of
I was
character?
laughing if my mom ever listened. Between 15 years old and 20 was an ugly phase for Ross McArthur. So I think, one of those things was when you're in that age, you're trying to figure out who you are. I kind of struggled with that in those years. And so I would try to be a chameleon and fit into things that weren't really me. I was dating a girl 4 years older than me and doing things I shouldn't have been doing, things like that. I wasn't listening to my parents. I was rebelling. I was talking back, showing up late. That 5 year period, I didn't really know who I wanted to be. I was being everybody else. And I think that's kind of like when you look back at like figuring out who you are, I made poor decisions in that period. It shapes who you are. But I was in my 30s before I figured out who I wanted to be.
Oh,
I think a lot of people are that way.
how did your parents deal with that? Were they
Oh,
supportive?
they struggled. They did. I give them a lot of kudos. We struggled a lot, and I give my parents all the credit. They stuck with me. They're strict and they have their rules. They were doing everything right, but I felt like they're dumb. They're old. I'm smarter than them. I did all the things that adolescent and teenager would do. And so,
I can call some of my kids in here. They'll give you the same speech right now, and they'll swear
yeah,
it's
I
true.
mean, it's crazy. But as you grow up and get older, you figure out who you're going to be. Some people don't, and they struggle and end up in places they shouldn't. But you're big into teaching the youth, and you probably have more stories than I have of things and trying to get people straightened out and keep them down the right path.
Let's talk business. You do
Yeah.
flipping, property management, and multifamily. Which excites you?
Kind of a career salesperson, and even when I was a vice president of the software company in my last, kind of part of my career. And by the way, I didn't mention this, almost going on 3 years ago, I left corporate America to do this full time. So I
Mhm.
didn't really add that as part of it. So my last part of my job was a VP of sales, essentially. I ran the sales department. And so, but my entire career was in sales management, processes, people. I love the thrill of the hunt. People in sales love acquisitions, negotiation, every aspect of those three businesses that you just said, whether, large multifamily, syndication, group investing, a small duplex or a flip, you're negotiating with somebody. I love the transformation of taking something dilapidated and bringing it back to life. Only if I can make money. When you have a bad one go bad and you don't do very well, flipping's very painful, actually. But the thrill of kind of getting it, renovating, selling, and making a really good profit of it, that's a really good feeling. I think on the large multifamily side, we make money so many different ways in that, and I love that part of it. I do. I love the aspect of buying something and it's $50,000 a month in income and getting it to 90, and then seeing the different ways we can make money for ourselves and our investors. Like, I love that aspect of it. I think that's what I find myself liking to be involved in, reoccurring revenue businesses. I came from a software business. My first job was Blockbuster, and they had an unlimited pass for $20 a month. I've seen reoccurring revenue models my entire life. And so flipping is kind of anti that, right? Flipping
Right.
is I got to do it, I get paid, and then if I never do it again, that's it. It ends. The rental, the property management side, these other businesses have reoccurring revenue. And I think me and my business partner Stan have talked a lot about how do we get more of that, because that's exciting to me. Reoccurring revenue is exciting to me. If I do nothing else right now, I have X amount of dollars coming in. If I go and do double what we have, I double that coming in. It's a clear path. And so I think no matter what business we're in, there's exciting parts of it. And I think that's the pros of it. If you have a lot of those cons where it's really painful, it's probably not a business you want to be in. And so every one of those I think have been enjoyable to date for different reasons.
So, judging from what you said, our hold period for multifamily is long. Selling and buying again is the flipping model, the opposite of what you're looking to do,
Yeah.
unless you're running out of gas.
When we first got into this business, our whole plan was essentially buy, get up to stabilization, refinance. And we didn't really know how that was going to go. If I'm being honest, like, oh yeah, it's simple. We did it on small multifamily. We didn't realize, how's it going to go on an 80 or 100 unit apartment complex. And then when you read all these books and audiobooks, podcasts about syndication or group investing, we're just friends and family. So I'll put that out there too. So we only have a finite amount of capital really out there, unless we take outside money, which we're a little hesitant to do as a whole. So, when we think about you're going and buying an asset in 2022, if we could go buy every asset we looked at in 2022 and 2025 right now, we would, right? Because they all have shot up 20 to 30% more than they would have been back then, if not more. And so what we started to realize, this model that people create is like, I want to make money on disposition fees. I want to make money on the GP equity when I sell. You still got to find another asset. And we buy with local bank debt, we stabilize and move to agency debt between year 2 and 3. And that allows us to create long-term recurring revenue for another 5 to 7 years, maybe longer. We sell if it makes sense for us and our investors, but our number one play is to refinance the long-term debt. Keep that recurring revenue going, which is maybe the opposite of 90% of the syndications out there.
Considering your background, why don't you take outside money? You would probably be a great capital raiser.
I think I probably would, right? And it opens you up for a different type of business model, right? It's a bunch of people who've known me or Stan or our partners for my entire life. There's a comfort level of trust there, and they've been watching us our entire life. Some guy out of California I've never met that's sitting on $1 million doesn't know me. I don't know him. I don't know if I can trust him. He doesn't know if he can trust me. I'm not saying we won't get there. Maybe 6 months from now, you're like, oh man, we're having a very different conversation. But it's worked so well today that I'm hesitant to do anything different. There's a comfort level with it, and maybe that's stunting my growth. I can sleep well at night.
Well, here's my question. Have you had deals that exploded and didn't do well?
So we have one deal that hasn't done well. We were going to sell it. It's 129 units. We've had a fire, done $2 million rehab on this. We had a fire after that. We've been through the ringer. I personally loaned that business like $900,000. We didn't do a capital call. I personally, me, Stan, and some private money lenders loaned that company money. So we never had to do a capital call, and we're getting ready to refinance probably in March next year. And we'll return probably 33% of the original capital. We'll catch up the prefs. So everyone will get back prefs caught up. We'll probably end up with about 45 to 47% of their money back in 3 years. That one has been extremely painful personally and for our investors. What I love about real estate is it's not done till it's done. And so to answer your question, that's been really painful. But if we fast forward to the outcome, I think we're going to be okay. It'll be, C. If we had to grade ourselves, let's be honest, it's average. Like we did okay.
Right.
But then if you can stack enough of the A's and B's and do really, I invested in a local brewery, been with them for 8, 9 years. They've been through COVID, inflation, tariffs. I think I've made 1.2% back on my money in 8 years. It was a very sexy business to get involved in,
Mhm.
and it's hasn't paid extremely well. They're doing a great job. After all that, we came out with that outcome. I feel like we
Right.
can stand tall.
Right. I mean, the place where I'm going with this question is I got friends and family that have lots of LLCs. I would never take any of their LLCs. I'd be too scared. I'd rather take the LLCs of some guy in California with $1 million and, 100 LLCs or 300 LLCs, and I'll sleep good at night. But when I got my nephew or my brother-in-law or my brother's LLCs, I wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah. So I guess that's a good counter, and I think I'll spin it a little more. Because we do that, it makes us hyper focused on results. More than ever, because it's my mom, it's my uncle, it's my brother. These are people you deeply care about. When things weren't going great at that property, I wasn't sleeping. But I think it pushes you to be the best every day because you don't want to disappoint the people you look at every moment of your life.
Right.
It's a double edged sword.
You're worried about disappointing them. I'm worried about them killing me.
Yeah, it's a different mentality. We do take referrals, like your cousin who I've known for 10 years. That's okay. But just some random guy, yeah, I don't know. We haven't got to that point yet. I probably didn't give you the clearest answer of why, but that's just the way my brain's wired.
Right. And with the property management, are you going to turn that into a business or keep it in-house? Does it make sense to scale because you're good at it and you can help people with their properties and make money on?
So that's the devil and angel. Like we have it going on all the time. So a brief history of why we started that company. We used third party until we had sub 400 units. We had small property management companies that we worked with. We had some larger ones that were supposedly specialized in large multifamily. They were all terrible for different reasons. So when we started to build this idea of starting our property management company, we started a list of all the reasons why they were terrible or failing us. One was dedication. You'd pay X amount of dollars a year. At that time, close to $400,000 a year we were paying in property management, and we were getting maybe per week, you know, 80 hours of people's time, maybe, probably closer to like half that. And so we're like, well, we could go employ like 3 or 4 people and get 120, 160 hours or something like that. So the dedication and the focus was key. The other thing we realized is, so let's just say it's me, you, and Stan. We own 3 different apartment complexes. We're all customers of XYZ Property Management Company. You have a certain way to look at things. Stan has a certain way to look at things, and I have a certain way to look at things. So now we have 3 standard operating procedures as 3 different owners for this third party, and then multiply that by 50 or 100 owners. Now they have 50 or 100 owners that all have different focus areas. So we really felt like if we could create a property management company that was lean, first and foremost, there was a lot of overhead at a lot of these other ones too. Lean, 100% focused with one standard operating procedure, which is follow the deal investments operating procedure, then we could be incredibly efficient at our business plan and executing our business plan. And what we found so far is that's 100% true. So now take that story and say, hey, you're going to come to me with 200 units to manage. What happens?
Right.
We have two.
Won't work. That's right.
We get asked often, probably 2, 3 times a month. Somebody will mention
Mhm.
a broker or a friend of ours who's going through the same thing we went through. Like, hey, will you manage our properties? And at times I'm like, ooh, maybe, because like that's more income. But we're also making money at that property management company today. Like, not to talk too hard at real numbers, but as a small business they manage about 850 units for us today. We have some in Michigan that's third parties. We'll probably make $50,000 each per partner off the property management company, which is, you're not going to, don't get me wrong, you're not like nobody's quitting their job and going to retirement today, but it's a revenue stream, right?
Right.
And we can control. If we buy another property, maybe that 50 becomes 60. We go buy another property, it becomes 70. And so if we continue to grow, I think that becomes just a bigger business, to your point. If we stay stagnant, it obviously doesn't. If we went third party, we could probably triple the business. Do we triple the headache and create inefficiencies that now affects our investors and us?
How much of your time does property management take that it's worth the profits it brings you?
So remember, we make money a lot of different ways in this business, right? So we have an asset management fee. This is all I do in the business every day. So it's kind of hard to say, like, well, how much time are you spending on property management versus asset
Mhm.
management versus acquisitions and dispositions, right?
Right.
They're all part of the business. But I would
Mhm.
say every week we can kick this off in 30 to 40 hours a week across all of them. And that includes the flipping business. Now,
Right.
it's taken time to get there, right? Early on, I was doing 2 jobs and I was probably doing, one at 40 and I was doing this at 40, and now I've kind of got it honed down where I can really get this thing done in 30, 35 hours a week. But it comes down to, there's a book called Good to Great, which I think you've probably read or heard of. It's a little dry of a book, but there's a part of it that I really enjoy, which is find the right people, put the right people on the bus, in the right seats, and the wrong people off the bus, right?
Right.
And so you can't do that day one when you start a business. It's really hard to do. It's essentially you're the right person doing it all. Doing a
Right.
lot of Stan and I become partners and start follow the deal. We hire Lori, our CFO, and start a property management company. We find the right VP of operations, Casey. It becomes less of our time, and I'm becoming the maestro
Mhm.
to the orchestra. Makes
Right.
sense. I'm setting the
Sure.
expectations and then I'm inspecting what I'm expecting them to do. And that is where I think scale and efficiency becomes. If I added 300 more apartment communities units, it doesn't really change how much I work because we have the right people to take that on.
Right.
Me and Stan are going to meet for lunch later this week talking about where do we go in the next 2 to 3 years. Do we want to stay hyper focused on that? We can do it. We're doing it every day.
How are you guys doing? Interest rates are up. Rent is not growing. Vacancy, maybe, depends on which
Yep.
part of the country you're in. How are you keeping your heads above water?
So we went really hot, ended 2022 all the way through. Just trying to make sure I got we're in 2025, ended 24. pretty hot, pretty big growth. That was where all of our apartments came from. This year we've bought 84, two apartment complexes, 84 units. That's it. That's all we've got so far this year. So, if you can
Mhm.
kind of do some quick math, like we're probably half of what we would normally be buying. But because of that, we've been very focused operationally. We've spent 2025 staying looking at deals every day. I'm looking at a deal today. I'll underwrite that we might pick up. Staying engaged, writing LOIs when they call for it, but we're focused on operations. We were buying a lot of units when interest rates were high. We have some debt at 7.5% on a couple of apartment
Wow.
complexes. If the deal works at 7.5, it certainly
Right.
works at agency debt at 5.5. There's a dry up of deals in the Midwest where we're at. There's deals that are hitting the market. There's deals that are trading, but when you kind of call that C plus to B plus asset, doesn't really matter the deal size with some meat on the bone. It's just either they want way too much money or they're just not out there. We're seeing a lot of new stuff hitting the market, like stuff that
Mhm.
was built maybe in the last year or two. Those come with $140,000 unit prices, where maybe the other stuff comes at 60 or 70. So you're talking deal size might be out of our ballpark. People are trading, deals are happening. Overall, people are buying less. Not because they don't want to. Actually, I think a lot of people think it's a decent market to buy right now. It's because they just don't seem to be out there. And that's at least our perception as somebody who's pretty active.
We got mixed data all over, up, down, sideways for the past 2 years. Everybody's waiting for the breakout. It's not happening. Everybody's got their thing they're waiting for, whether it's interest rates, whether it's new units to stop coming onto the market, the drying up of units. What are you pinning your hopes on? What are you waiting to happen in the market?
Nothing. Because if you're waiting, you're gonna wait forever. If I waited to buy that first fourplex, like it was during COVID, we were under contract, and then like 2 months later, the shutdown happened. Later, the shutdown happened. If I was waiting, I would have never bought real estate. I think that's the key point. I think people who wait usually forever. I think
Mhm.
what we're doing is we're just trying to be smart. We have our buy box. We probably should raise our expectations. Things cost more. Now we have to reset ourselves a little bit, but we're not per se waiting for anything. I would love interest rates just to normalize in the sixes. I'd be happy with agency debt in the low fives or high fours. And if that happens, the world goes round. It's not like the extremes where people are getting into the low threes or even fives for bank local debt. I think
Mhm.
that keeps the trading happening. If I had one wish, that would be it. I don't need wild swings, just average, normal for the next 5 years, and I'm thrilled.
What scares you about the economy? What are you worried about may happen to make it tank and really kill things?
If debt went higher than it did a year ago, I think that does cause a lot of issues. I don't think it will, to be fair, but I think that would cause a lot of issues because you're hoping to refinance a point or two lower, and now you might not get there. Fortunately, the deals support themselves. I think that's a big thing. I don't think it's going to happen too, but I just things that would worry me is if they put actual regulations in what you can charge for rent. That was kind of floated around over a 5 year period there, 4 year period there for a little while, and I think that would cause issues. New York is one of them. California is another, right? So those type of things scare me because then you can't control your business. Right now, I can control my business relatively to the market embracing it.
Mhm.
I can
Right.
control the business. I think those are probably the two big ones. Something we're going to have to pay attention to is the AI stuff. We use it often, but I think that's going to be an interesting disruption. And I think trades might be the biggest benefit to it because people aren't going into the trades. We all know this, aren't using fact. There's less people going into hands on trades than there ever in their history. Some of this AI stuff and some of these other things happening is going to shift the job market again. And I think it'll maybe, and we talked to our kids about this, maybe push some people into these six-figure trades jobs because there's a path now. These guys are making consistent money. The problem is right now is the trades are so hard to find good ones. And we might see an interesting dynamic happen where trades come back and you can get some quality trades again. Again, these are all hypothetical things, but these are a couple things I've been thinking about lately.
Trades is on everybody's mind. It's time to start real work. Roll up our sleeves and start working.
Shirts and polos right now.
Just in case you get called to emergency
Yeah.
duty.
I would fail if I had to work with my hands. hands. Yes, I flip a lot of houses, but I'm the least handy person you'll meet. Just putting that out there.
I'm embarrassed to say my wife is the plumber.
We all have roles and responsibilities in our household.
Yeah, I happen to be a lefty, but what I didn't ask for, two left hands.
Good.
Okay, now we're going to wrap up with our signature LLC questions. I'm going to ask you four questions with the acronyms LLC. Just shoot quickly. Let's see if we get some music for this one. You've had harder ones on podcasts. Okay, first one, long life challenge. What's the challenge you're still working on today?
I would say it's a personality trait, but I'm very, very type A and I low patience. So I want things quickly and I want things now. Family, kids, 10 and 6 year old teach you that often. So I
Yes.
think that I've realized that's a personality flaw. And as the older I get, I work on it more, but it's probably something I'll always have to work on.
I always tell my kids, I wasn't born with any patience, but I hope to die with a lot of it.
Good.
What's one hard lesson you now see crystal clear and got under control?
Yeah, this one's tough for me to say because you got to remember what my story about my mom and my dad. The reality is, not everybody is like you. So just because you're a good human and try to do things the right way, there's a lot of folks out there in this industry and other industries that do not. Particularly contractors, trades, there's a lot of shadiness. I've had to reprogram my brain to say, not everybody's like you. You really got to inspect and protect yourself and make sure that there's some recourse if you were ever taken advantage of because it's not, if it happens, it's going to happen.
Number three, luck, leadership, or choice. What brought you to where you are?
I don't believe in luck. What's the quote? Luck is when opportunity and effort cross. I took a lot of gambling. So what was the three? Luck.
Leadership or choice? The choices you made.
I think every time we make a decision, it is interesting, right? Something you do today impacts something else tomorrow. It just is the way the world works. And so I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. If you look at back the 20 years or 41 years or however long of your life, you can look at these different decisions you made along the line and how that now landed you exactly where you're at, maybe for all the right reasons. So I think those choices landed me here.
And lastly, legacy. What legacy are you hoping to leave behind?
It's nothing crazy. I hope my kids are set up, whether they take over this business or not. I hope they're set up to be successful and good humans. I hope they remember me and my wife as incredibly good parents who were around and caring for them. So, like I said about my parents, they're amazing humans. And I hope one day, when we get old, that they're telling stories around our funeral or whatever that, hey, my mom and dad were amazing humans. They were great. That's all you really want out of life. Money is money, and I hope I make a ton of it. But when you really look at it, I want to be known as that good human.
Right. That was great. Incredibly honest. We didn't have one buzzer go off. One for me, none for you. I appreciate you coming on. That's a wrap on our first episode of Get Real, Get Wiser. Until next time, keep it real and don't get buzzed. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Okay.